I'm delighted to say Mathew Bryza has joined us. Mathew, thank you for joining us. This freeze from a judge on this, basically this ban, effectively a freeze from a judge on a freeze on all this massive spending on federal agencies. Tell us, first of all, who the freeze on this expenditure, who that was going to affect, what sort of agencies would it have hit?
Well, that's the big problem, that it's not clear. When the new press secretary, Kathleen Leavitt, gave her first briefing yesterday, she said, read this two-page memo, and what you'll see is that this won't affect anybody who gets direct payments from the federal government for welfare payments, essentially.
So individuals who could face being hit.
Yeah. Individuals, yeah. But then she never clarified, well, what other government agencies are or are not included. She said, I'm not going to go through all that here. So it wasn't clear. And it sounds like every government agency is included in this review.
And this was basically, we're going to have a review. Right now, we're stopping your funding. Now, we know that, under DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, under Elon Musk and other efforts, some from the executive orders on the first day, we're basically looking at massively cutting down the, apologies, trying not to sneeze. Massively cutting down on the cost of federal government and the overreach of government, and particularly diversity, equity and inclusion and all that stuff. But this was much wider than that, we think.
Oh, yeah, this is every program. Every single U.S. government program is what it sounds like, would be reviewed. So except those ones you mentioned, Julia, the direct payments, everything else is under review and all funding must stop. And yeah, people were, whether they're Republican or Democrat, were really worried about this. Like, what about my grandmother used to get Meals on Wheels, right? And so, someone would come and talk to her, give her some food. That's all like immediately stopped. And that's a very popular program on both sides of the political aisle.
Right. Yeah. So there could have been personal, individual impact on those people, as opposed to some bureaucrats sitting at home being paid a high wage and not getting anything done. So that was concerned. So the judge has temporarily blocked it. But there is an issue where fundamentally this is within the executive's purview, within the separation of powers. Donald Trump has the right to stop federal funding. Federal budget is basically his budget, isn't it? He can do this.
Well, it is, but there is a constitutional question about that. So Democrats are arguing once the Congress disperses the money, appropriates it, and says you need to spend it on these programs, the executive branch must do so. But in my own experience, very often, not because of any sort of undermining of the system, the money wouldn't get spent sometimes because there weren't the proper programs to spend it on, or the time wasn't right.
And there's just huge ways. There's a really big issue in America with what's called pork barrel laws, where basically to get an agreement of this senator or this congressman or woman, they have to agree, okay, we'll do this, we'll give you this money for this project. So and everyone goes, well, he's got that, I want that. And every single thing ends up costing billions and billions and billions and billions more, whether it's on a state level or on a federal level. Everything just costs way more than it does. And I mean, and as we know, people talk about a booming American economy. America is in trillions of debt.
Oh, it is. And a lot of people, both American economists and financiers and global ones, worry how sustainable that is, and that at some point the chickens will come home to roost, and the dollar will lose its status as a global currency. Sanctions aside, by the way, which also hurts the dollar. Yeah, that's a real concern.
Yeah, I mean, the reality check. And again, let's not sugarcoat everything. One thing I did like announced by Donald Trump yesterday, this is an offer of roughly 2 million federal workers, basically buying them out. We're offering what we would call redundancy package. Basically, we'd like you to leave work now. We'll pay you until September. The redundancy packages like that don't really exist in the States on that sort of level. And basically, they reckon that would save some $100 billion if, as they would expect, 5 to 10% of federal employees basically quit. There's certainly a demand, you have to be in the office, you have to be accountable, you can't be working in diversity, equity and inclusion, you need to be doing something productive, otherwise we don't want you. But isn't there a worry with this that, I mean, I'm all in favour of you getting rid of some federal workers, and I'd love us to do this here. I've worked in offices where they've offered redundancy payments like this, and what we saw was an awful lot of people who were good people who can get another job very quickly in the private sector or elsewhere. They take that, lovely, I'll get paid for 8 months, thank you very much. They get another job. The people who know they're unemployable anywhere else, they stay. You get stuck with the worst people.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And, in my experience, 23 years as a U.S. diplomat, I mean, sure, there were a lot of people who weren't working very hard. And there were a lot of people also who felt that they were the keepers of orthodoxy and various policies. I don't believe in the deep state, but that was just sort of a human thing. I have this job. and I want to defend my interests.
Yeah.
But there's so many public servants that chose to go in the government knowing they could make a lot more money in the private sector because they believed in the mission. And that's what we might lose with these sorts of buyouts.
Yeah, indeed. One other thing I was very, very excited to read and would be a big fan of happening in this country to a greater extent, a broad executive order signed by Donald Trump targeting transition-related medical care for children. It's an order titled, it just says it what it is, Protecting Children from Chemical and Surgical Mutilation, and basically restricts access to what's called gender-affirming medical care, telling a very, very vulnerable, unhappy boy or girl that, yes, they're actually born in the wrong body. It includes puberty blockers, hormone therapy and surgery. Anyone younger than 19 they'll be able to get federal funding for any care. So if any medical school or hospital or any other organisation carrying this out will not get any federal funding. Now, most of them rely on federal funding, don't they, for this? Is this effectively a ban on this surgery now?
Well, unless it's challenged and overturned
Which it will be. It'll be challenged.
Yeah, it'll be challenged, yeah. But so what Trump has done is shift the whole terms of the debate in America on so many issues, and this one in particular. 6 months ago, if you would step up and speak like this, you were labeled sort of an extremist, rightist, Republican.
Transphobic, yeah.
They're taking another look and saying, wait a second. Maybe children do need to mature a little bit. I mean, the human brain isn't fully developed in terms of cognitive capabilities until college years.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we don't think you can vote or drive a car, but we absolutely think you can cut off your genitals or your breasts. And I mean, it's mad. It's evil.
Yeah, and we protect our children in so many other ways through the law, right? So, as you're suggesting, take another look. So Trump is catalyzing new perspectives and new debates. I think that's healthy. Just the way he goes about it, like with this ban on the aid programs, is so disruptive that it's causing a lot of.
Maybe he is a disruptor. That's what he said he was going to do. Maybe that's what's needed to shake everyone out of the. I mean, I would say the madness we've seen. Great to talk to you, Mathew Bryza. Thank you so much for joining us, former White House official.